Thank you for joining in, all of you, our dear readers and our subscribers. Welcome to another edition of News You Can Use, which is a curated interactive platform whereby we deconstruct the news as it happens around us. We do a deep dive and try to make sense of its applicability or its practicality in our everyday lives, and we do it with a subject expert. Today we have with us Dr. Alisha Lalji. She's a psychologist and a community mental health expert based out of Bombay. And the topic is, how do we raise our boys? Now, why did we choose this as a topic of discussion? It stems from news reports that are continuously talking about male aggression and toxic masculinity. And what does it mean to be a boy in today's India when you're stretched between really two extremes? One being of male power play, and at the other end, the expectation, what we call man up, the expectation that they will man up to the challenge of being an ideal example in society. And so, caught between these two polarities, what does a young boy do? And as parents, how we can help them negotiate this strife. Now, before I go on to Dr. Lalji, go over to Dr. Lalji, I would like to explain the format of the programming. So we'll have a Q&A right now. And after that, we'll open the floor for your questions and your queries that Dr. Lalji will answer. There is a Q&A box where you may post your questions. Some of you have already sent some of the questions that you would like to ask Dr. Lalji. So without much ado, I would like to begin with Dr. Lalji. Good evening, Doctor. Welcome to our
Good
News
evening,
and
Rinku.
Show. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Okay, so we will begin with the most basic, at the most basic point, that we expect our boys to empathize, to express their emotions, and to be sensitive when all they're getting are images of being strong, being muscular, being an achiever, you know. So what it is for a parent, therefore, to help them through this emotional journey where we keep on ignoring the dips and the troughs of their frailties, of something that they are not confident talking about, bring them out, as it were, of their cocoon. And because they are being bombarded with only news and images of very strong behavior, masculinity, of power play, of muscling in. So how do we negotiate as parents? How do we expose them to the fullness of emotions that a child ought to be equipped with while growing up? Over to
Thank you,
you.
Rinku. That is actually
Mm.
a very beautifully drafted question. And I know it's a question that you can't keep very crisp and concise due to the nature of the things that we need to answer today. Now, firstly, when I need someone to be sensitive, okay, there is a certain way in which I'm going to address them. Today, if I want someone to confide in me, if I hound them, they are never going to confide in me. So the first thing we need to do is be sensitive to the needs of this person or this child who's growing. How often do parents know the struggles that the boy is facing? So in terms of growing up, adolescence, puberty, there are voice changes, there is probably a comparison with another sibling that is probably doing well. Say I'm 14, a boy in my class has a stubble and I don't have one. I may feel inferior about that. My voice has started to change. I don't like how it has turned out. I may not feel good about that. This ultimately leads to me feeling inferior. Now, when I feel inferior, I want to make me feel superior. So I may in turn take to bullying someone or ragging someone because I want that power and that power play. And putting someone down may give me that dopo hit. Now, when I say dopo hit, I mean the dopamine hit. Now, as children, when children show aggression or any signs of aggression, always remember, I always say this to a lot of parents, it's learned. When I say it's learned, it means that they've either seen it in the house or they watched it on screen. There's no third medium in which they can get it. So it is learned when they're young. Now, I remember way back in 2015, a number of parents themselves had filed many petitions against the television series for children called Chhota Bheem. Why? Because at that time, we saw absolutely timid children suddenly starting to hit one another. And why did this happen? Because they thought hitting someone meant an achievement, which was followed by a reward. And so they did more of it. So we need to understand that where is it that this vicious circle starts from? Where does aggression actually crop from? Now, we're used to saying all the time that you're a man, you're not supposed to cry. I see this even at work. If a father comes with his son, he'll say, you're a man, you can't cry. Mard ko dar nahi hota. Your mother can cry, your sister can cry. Have you seen your dad cry? No. So you can't cry. So what is that? That is immediate suppression. Now, when they at the same time show aggression, we feel it is socially desirable. Why is that? Out of all the thousands of emotions that we have, why is aggression the only socially desirable one? Because it is equated to masculinity. So we feel that maybe it's okay to be like that in that way. And many children stop talking about mental health only because of this suppression. So when I often address like a crowd of hundreds of people, my introductory line very often is, how are you? And they all say, oh, we're fine, we're good. And I say, okay, I'm going to ask you the same question again. And when I ask it again, they say the same thing. And when I ask it one third time, they feel they have to raise their volume. So they say the same thing again. Oh, we're fine, we're doing well, great. And I look at them and say, do you think in a crowd of 400 of you, everyone's doing fine? Everyone's well, there's no problem at all. And then they start thinking and they smile because they know the answer. So is it just the fact that we've got used to this template message of how are you doing? We're doing fine, thank you. Even you will realize, Rinku, probably you're having a really bad day. Okay, there's a lot happening. Someone drops you a text, you're overwhelmed, you're probably not at the right place, but you will still write out, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. So I think we've got used to this template message, and it's high time we start asking people how they actually feel. So they talk about sensitive issues, and this goes for both genders.
So do you have any examples of cases like this in your clinic? How do you do parents come up to you with such issues about teaching the young boy how to process emotions? Has that happened in your clinic? So what is the module? What is it you tell parents first so that, our audience will be benefited? Yeah.
The first thing I tell them is you need to wait back and listen. Now, not every boy would want to be a boy in reality. I have seen adults belonging to the LGBTQI plus community as young as, they've said when they were as young as 4, they felt in a certain manner. So they knew how they were feeling. Probably when their mother was out of the house, they would try on her heels, saris and makeup. But when their mother was back, they were probably beaten up for that or scolded for feeling in a certain way. Parents first need to be sensitive. I'm going to confide in you, or your adolescence is only going to confide in you if you create a safe space. The day your child knows that no matter what I say, my mother's not going to shout at me, he's going to come back and tell you everything and not reach up to another friend who would probably not guide him in the best manner. So first, learn to listen to your child. Also tell your child that no matter how harsh your reality is, you tell me the truth and I will make sure I can help you. Because the problems at 4 and 5 are different. The problems in adolescence are different. We have so many kids taking to substances and other things like that. If we don't create a safe space for boys, they are going to take to these vices even faster than you and I can ever imagine.
Since you talked about creating safe spaces in the home, let's talk about cultural conditioning, which is a very important factor in when we raise children, be it a boy or a girl. Cultural conditioning of the family itself, of the person itself, or sometimes it's latent, We may claim to be progressive, but because of our cultural conditioning, it's almost seeped into our DNA, and we may just do predicted set behaviors, rather than become conscious about it and say, no, this is not the right kind of messaging that is going on. And this is partly the problem of mixed messaging that happens in a family, right? So what are the ways that we can, and I want you to do it with practical examples. What are the ways by which we can free ourselves from this cultural conditioning?
I think to be able to free ourselves from cultural conditioning, we first need to free ourselves from color conditioning. It's so often that there are certain colors like pink that are attached only to girls.
Yep.
If there is a 4-year-old girl, you're only going to give her a doll. And if there is a 4-year-old boy, you're only going to give him a car. How often have either been asked or offered the opposite of what they're actually giving?
Yeah.
When I work with a number of kindergarten schools and I see a number of bags stacked up, looking at the bag, I can tell you if this belongs to a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
Because unicorn is only associated with girls and other animated cartoon characters are associated only with boys. If it's a girl, it has to be a kitchen set and it has to be pink. And now the progression that we've made is that the pink kitchen set is now lavender. Okay. So I feel that children will learn if they are given a chance to learn. But if I just put it right in front of them, they're not going to learn like that.
I would also like you to illustrate this with the way we buy toys, the way parents buy toys for their boys and girls too. And unconsciously, they may be just perpetuating the biases that we have grown up with. So, how do you negotiate that territory? What do you tell parents? If you could just illustrate that by way of an example.
I feel, say, for example, there's a parent who's taking their child to purchase something. Allow your child to choose. If you have a budget, it's okay. Tell them what your budget is. Once they grow up, they'll understand. Say 3 digits, 4 digits, the choice is yours. But allow them to choose. If your 6-year-old girl is picking up a car, it's absolutely fine. And there is no problem in that. If your 5-year-old boy wants to wear a lavender colored t-shirt, there is no problem in that. But how many places out there are even selling those? Okay. So allow them to choose. Do not have preconceived notions thinking that there is a problem. You allow them to explore the world. You're exploring their horizons for their future. The more you give them options in life, they're not going to be given those options on a platter. Let them explore the world with their own 2 eyes. And the younger, the better, right?
Yeah. So, as part of your work profile, has any corporate or a toy manufacturer, toy major ever looped you in on their conversations on what kind of product profile they're developing for kids? Or do you ask parents why they buy the kitchen set for the girl still, or why they buy the gun for the boy still? I mean, how do you negotiate this tricky choice?
I have actually sat with a lot of vendors at schools.
Yeah.
Not directly, but when we have like a Diwali function or a Christmas function, we have to choose, right, what we need for 400 kids at the same time. And if it is a girls' school, they're going to come with these 4 or 5 fixed things. If it is a boys' school, they're going to come with like a ball, car, gun, and a fixed thing. And I told them that, why don't you offer all to all kids? Like, let them pick. You're anyway ordering in bulk, right? So they said, aise thodi hota hai. I said, how can you be so sure? So I said, let's do a mock example here. And the school was running and I said, call 2, 3 girls. Out of that, one girl did not pick the doll, but instead picked a ball. So I said, hota hai. It's not that it doesn't happen. This is a small sample size of 3. But give them a chance. So what they actually did is, they said, we'll order in bulk. Let the vendor take back what is extra. We give 3 options. Let them pick what they want. But how often does this actually happen? Also, see, dolls for me, dolls have a notion of certain perfection.
Yep.
Okay.
You were talking about the body consciousness, and that is what.
Yes.
And I think when you do that when you imprint that kind of body consciousness in a young mind, even the boy is growing up with that body consciousness, right? So, how do you ensure a healthy body consciousness about the girl in boys growing up in schools? College comes much later, but it happens in school through puberty. How do they negotiate? How do parents negotiate this tricky phase in their boys' lives?
Right. I feel when you reach puberty, a little before that, a number of children start to develop an affection, an attraction, a liking, or a crush on somebody else. Now, what
Which
they
is
need to
perfectly
be is
normal, actually.
absolutely normal.
A lot of parents, in fact, make it look prohibitive. No, don't do this. This is wrong. I think that you need to
Yes.
tell parents who are listening into us today how to sort of balance it out and normalize this body consciousness in boys.
Correct. As a number of children are growing up, firstly, touching their own genitals is absolutely normal. There is a certain part of exploration which is normal. If you shout at them, that's going to stop, but it may not happen in front of you, but it will definitely happen. But you have instilled in them a certain fear. These children can grow up to have sexual problems because they have associated their genital with you shouting at them. So
Yeah.
that is one particular thing. Another thing is having a crush or liking someone is absolutely normal. So do not hound them or shout at them for it. I think it's absolutely healthy. But at the same time, having said that, you need to teach them, make them more aware about their body. And when they're aware about their body, they should also know that my hands and legs are restricted to me. Like we teach them good touch and bad touch. What is bad touch? When someone touches your lips, your chest, your butt, or between your legs. And that needs to be reported. Okay, so when we teach them good touch and bad touch, we also teach them that you do not touch someone without their consent. And if someone touches you, it can only be someone in the house or your doctor or your grandparent who's trying to change you. That is how we teach good touch and bad touch. So we need to be more body aware and conscious in terms of, even if you like someone, don't go and touch them. You can say your feelings if you wish to, but learn to accept a no. And do not go out of your way pushing yourself onto someone physically, because then this is like the seed. If you do that initially, you may do that even in adulthood. And that's when crimes increase. So you maintain a certain distance, which is adequate, which looks respectful. Like they say, my boundaries end at your nose, or that is your boundary. I cannot touch you. So we need to make sure that they don't touch each other from a very young age in itself. Having said that, I also tell parents, don't make children conscious of saying their nursery rhymes in front of other children.
Yeah.
Your child may be great at saying it, but don't do that. Don't make them sit on someone's lap if they don't want to sit on someone's lap. If they don't want to go to someone's house, try and find out why they don't want to go to someone's house. Has something inappropriate happened? So being aware of their bodies, also often just checking for scars, which are not normal fall related to scars, will also help in terms of their body protection.
Okay. So following from this, in day-to-day life at home, how do you ensure a gender neutral behavior? And how do you build that awareness in boys and girls also? But since today we are talking about boys, of course, we can bring in the context of girls. In mixed families, probably it is far more easier to do that. In single child families where there's only boy or only daughter, maybe it's a little difficult to illustrate ways to balance the equation. So, on a day to day basis, in everyday life, what are the ways by which we can ensure gender neutral behavior on the home front or at the personal front?
I think the first thing we need to do is redefine the term strength from physical energy and physical strength to resilience. I have seen a number of doting fathers who have daughters, only daughters, and they love their daughters. But at the same time, in amongst their 2-3 daughters, if there's one daughter who's very, very good and is an overachiever, they would probably tell the daughter that you're the son of the family. Why? Because she's an overachiever. Okay.
So overachiever is not a good thing to happen to girls. That's the wrong messaging that goes down.
So they need to be told that you can still be a daughter, you're a doting father, you love your child. But a few mistakes here change the entire statement, right? You don't need to be a man to be able to do well. The dynamics have also changed from people asking you, do you work? To now asking you, where do you work? So we are seeing that shift. Okay, so there are also women that are into positions.
Are you seeing this shift in cities, or are you seeing this shift in at the lower middle income level, or at the upper middle income level, or in the elite strata of society? Where are you seeing these changes?
See, I would say that there is a shift of around 15 to 18% overall.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
because a lot of people work. It can be career reasons, goal oriented, or financial reasons. Everyone has a different reason. But there is a shift for sure. But at the same time, what we need to do is change a few things in our curriculum and system as well. Now, I go to a kindergarten of children 4 years old. Everyone in the first week of school is learning myself. Okay, so the first sentence is, my name is so and so. I am so and so years old. I am in so and so class. And the fourth sentence is, my mother works at home. My father goes to office. And I went back to the school and said, excuse me, are you trying to say all 40 of these have mothers sitting at home? And they said, Indian textbook. I said, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like this. It is one line. If you actually want to teach them right, do a survey, send it in their diary, ask how many people are working, how long does it take?
Yep.
Okay, so we have certain very fixed, rigid patterns which we also need to break.
Yeah.
Now, say if there is a meal served at home, you are a man and there's a meal served at home and you're sitting for dinner. Now, that particular meal involves firstly grocery shopping, cutting, cooking, and then laying the table. Apart from financing that meal, I want to ask, or I want men to make sure they know what is their role, or probably just serving themselves. What have you done out of the four of these? Where could you help better? There are some things that don't even take time. How long does it take to make your bed, to fix a sandwich, to get yourself a glass of water? Okay. Now, I'm not saying this happens. This does happen. I've seen it in a number of houses. Okay. But if you're someone who's listening who does not do this, it doesn't take time. Also, it reduces somebody else's effort who's actually doing it. Now, the same people go abroad and do everything from scratch.
Yeah.
And here,
that's the funny part. Yeah.
And here, when you actually have help and it's so much easier, you don't. I was recently speaking to someone in America who's been there for 40 years. And I was very intrigued to ask that, do you have maids? Like, kuch to hota hoga, you're well settled, learning in dollars. So he said, yes, we have a maid who comes maybe once or twice a month. So I was very, very intrigued to ask, like, how do you all charge? And so they said we charge around, the person in INR charges around $150, which comes to 12,000 rupees in INR for 3 hours. Do you think people have that kind of money to pay for 3 hours? 12,000 INR. That is probably someone's income for a month. So you're going abroad and doing all of that. But in your house, when you have help, you don't do it. What does this precisely mean?
Yeah, that is true.
So do small things. See, it's not about who's better than someone else. It's not about you versus me. We're all on the same plateau. Just help each other navigate through. It's that simple.
So flowing from this, the other part about building this gender neutral behavior at home is also based on conversations, right? And while usually we have seen mothers and daughters share a bond of conversations, rarely do we have such sensitive conversations between boys and their mothers, maybe a little bit with their mothers, but not so much in the teen years, and conversations with their fathers. So, how to build these sensitivities to ensure that we are really listening to the boy trapped within, and we are sort of gauging his frailties if there are any, or if there are any issues. Parents should be the first people to catch an aberration, right? Or something that is disturbing, that can really play havoc with a personality development of the boy. So how do we build these conversations day to day as parents?
Build these conversations with the child?
Yes, to increase sensitivities.
To increase sensitivities. I think a little bit of this we've covered in the first question related to sensitivities. But just to continue from there, I would like to say that if you talk to them with an open mind and ask them that, is there something that you want to talk about? Does something bother you? Does someone bother you? Parents always ask a child about meals and education. These are two things parents never miss out on. I ask parents, you always ask them, marks kitne mile, tiffin khali kiya ki while coming home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Aapne kitni baar pucha that kisi ke saath jhagda hua kya? Did someone tell you something? Did someone push you? How were you feeling today? How often do you ask that? So firstly, we need to learn to ask a wide array of questions, more than just the tiffin and academics. That can follow. Okay. Even at schools, generally we are told according to psychology. You don't pick the child who is the most talkative or the naughty one, because the
Exactly.
child is supposed to be naughty. You
Mm.
pick the child who's sitting right in the corner all alone during meals, during class, and no one is talking to him. But for us, that one is the most peaceful of the lot. So we don't pick them. But you need to pick that one first.
Yeah.
You need to ask your child about the content that they are watching.
Mm.
Are there any new apps that they are on? Do
Mm.
friends discuss words that probably they don't know the meanings of? Do your friends say
Yeah.
something, that you don't know the meaning of? Have you ever been teased? Have you ever been mocked? Men are said to have a facade which is way more stronger than women. Men do not speak about things. Having spoken about that, we'll also be covering uh, consent in a little bit. So, just to give you a
Yeah.
little idea about that as well, at clinic or all therapists, we take down history. So, the basic information that we
Yeah.
write, we
Yeah.
call it history taking. Of course, that takes time and it goes over sessions. But a very important question that we, in a very sensitive manner, ask is about sexual abuse.
Yep.
Has someone ever touched you inappropriately? Okay. Has someone ever touched your private parts? Now, this we ask to both genders. You'll be surprised, Rinku, if I tell you there's an equal number of inappropriate touch or sexual abuse, including sodomy, in boys and girls.
Yeah, and this is something that is underreported or not talked about at all or brushed under the carpet. So, if you can please elaborate on this,
Sadly,
this is a very important point
sadly,
to make that it
yeah,
is an equal number. And
it is an
abuse
equal
at
number.
home is also, maybe within the family by relatives.
So it is an equal number, but men have a facade and then they don't show it. So when we talk about consent in relationships, it's not only the boy asking the girl for consent in a maybe a verbal or a non-verbal manner, like, are you okay? Even the girl needs to make sure that the boy is comfortable with her. Like, are you okay? Okay. Even a father, before hugging his daughter's forehead, needs to make sure that she's okay with it. That's how we set boundaries. So, men sexual abuse is less reported because they are targeted for not being manly enough. They are targeting for being, sadly, this word has to be used, for being a sissy, for not being able to stand up for themselves. And because of that, these men suppress their emotions to such an extent that they grow up to be adults that are actually emotionally unavailable. So when I see couples, I see a lot of couples at clinic who feel
Yeah.
that, my man doesn't emote a certain feeling. We have
Yeah.
to actually go back to their history, which is decades old. Why is there this suppression? You suppress it during childhood, it's going to come up somewhere. Or probably they'll just end up growing up to be these adults who are not very expressive.
No, but when we talk about consent, it's very important for teen boys, given the nature of sexual crime, sexual violence, or even sexual experimentation that's now happening at a very young age in schools, especially in the teen groups and
Yeah.
in an urban setting. So, in such a scenario, how do you encourage or how do you build a discipline among young boys? What should be the behavioral codes of seeking consent before approaching a girl or a woman? So, what is the practical? Are there any practical tips to build this in their everyday behavior while interacting with girls, stroke women?
I think firstly they need to be told that any physical interaction needs to be two-way. So if say you go out and you want to shake hands with someone, you need to first understand the person's body language. Are they actually comfortable with that? If you feel there is a certain amount of reluctance, like a lot of girls place their hand on their chest if they don't want that, you need to know that that is a no for you. If you feel someone's actually reaching out to you with their arms open, you hug them, it's fine. If you feel there's discomfort, you don't do it again, because these can go against them. So you need to gauge a person's verbal and non-verbal reactions. Like you can see when there is certain tension in the other person, that they are not comfortable. So you need not go out there, and you need to draw that boundary till you see the other person reciprocating or taking a few steps towards you.
Yeah. So now, an important part of everyday conversations, obviously, while raising boys, is talking about women health issues like menstruation, for example. And, just the other day we were discussing how Stayfree, the brand, has just launched a lovely, lovely ad campaign on on different families across India where the teen boy is being encouraged by parents to buy sanitary napkins for their sisters and saying it is absolutely okay and there's nothing taboo about it, and that it happens to the mother, their grandmother, their sister. So it was a very thoughtful campaign they have launched on the digital platform. Now, those kind of conversations actually do not happen everyday life. If you've watched that ad, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
It is
I know
not,
you sent it to me.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It is not as easy for there is this visual of a father, heating water, putting
Yeah.
in a hot water bag and asking his son, okay, give it to your sister. She's got cramps. So it's absolutely normally achhe hain. So, it's an ideal scenario, and it definitely doesn't happen in every home. So, I mean, but how easy it is to normalize this behavior in everyday life. I mean, do you think advertising will help open up this conversation, or something else needs to be done at the school level? I know there is a nationwide campaign on menstruation, normalizing it, but it is from the girl's perspective. Rarely has anything been done from the boy's perspective or the male perspective to widen
Right.
the ambit. So, what do you think needs to be done?
I feel that there are a lot of sex education programs that run. Now, sex education programs for boys generally talk about wet dreams and erections. How
Mm,
often does a sex education program for boys talk about menstruation or female orgasms? Okay.
yep.
If everything is a hush hush, for example, my pharmacy still gives me my sanitary napkin as if he's giving me some ransom. Look, it's a personal choice. But at the
Mm,
same time, everyone must know that if today you and I exist, it's because we had a mother who was menstruating.
yeah.
But if everything isn't hidden, even women, if there is so much of hush hush that does the
Mm,
rounds, how do you expect a boy, being the male gender, to actually come out and ask, what is this hush hush about? So
mm,
sometimes we ourselves need to drop the stigma. How often is a woman comfortable walking with a sanitary napkin with a transparent bag on the road?
yeah.
You are hiding it for what?
Mm,
You think they don't know? Of course they know. So if you are so hush hush about it, how do you expect someone of the opposite gender who has less knowledge about it to come and talk about it? Do
yeah.
you also know that out of 10, probably not even one mother has shown her son a sanitary napkin? And I'm not talking about a used one, a clean sanitary napkin. This doesn't happen. Okay. How often do fathers actually keep track? Now, for me, I'll give you a personal example, Rinku. I
Yeah,
come a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
family
That's why.
where there are three generations of only girls. Okay, that's how my family is. We're only girls and we are very comfortable on our own. Now, our men are very sensitive. So at home, it's not only my father who has bought us sanitary napkins, probably on a day when my mother's not home, he's also taught us how to wash stains because he didn't think this was my mother's job. He had a
Ah.
calendar where he would mark our initials, me, my sister, and my mother, in terms of who's going to get their period when. And he
Oh,
would remind us 2 days prior, if you have to go to school, you have to carry your pad. One day, I remember my mother and sister were having some decades ago, some argument. He called my mother on the side and said, she's due in 2 days, let her be. Now, I'm
okay.
not expecting everyone to do this, but he would
And
take care of our dates.
especially if there is a son in the family, would they do this? That's the larger question.
Yeah.
But
Also,
but
I
you
feel,
feel that can be done in a mixed
of course, that can be
family
done.
scene.
Of course, that can be done. And he had no remorse. He said, they're my daughters. And he would go and buy it in the open and said, so what? My daughter, my wife. How often are people doing that? Would you teach your son that? Is a question.
Yeah.
Also, this is decades ago. He's a 70-year-old
Mm.
year old man now, which is supposed to be old school. So, what is our
Yeah.
generation doing? We should have no shame at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also you mentioned a very interesting thing about, manly behavior. And we constantly hear these phrases floating about, even be
Yeah.
it on mass media, be it in the news, be it in domestic conversations, that, manly behavior. Hey, you must man up, be a man. You are constantly projecting an image of muscularity. Okay? There is no adjective or which defines delicateness, or even gentleness in a boy or man. So, in terms of using the language, what do we need to be careful about as parents, especially when we very randomly throw about these words? Oh, it's nothing. You must man up. It's nothing. You dismiss, and then you say you must man up. So, linguistically, how can we make changes in our daily conversations? If you can shed some light on that with experiences you have had in your clinic.
I want to talk to you about the term man up first. We use
Yes.
it very loosely. The
Mm.
term man up is actually a word that has many meanings and many sources of origin. One of the oldest source or the literal meaning of the word man up was is something that originated in the 1900 centuries. Okay. And at that time, the word man up basically meant increase manpower
Yeah.
for a social cause
So
or
it was
for a
genderless. Are you
revolution.
trying to say that
It was
that use of the
absolutely
word was
genderless.
genderless?
It
Okay.
was genderless. It just meant manpower. But the
Mm.
word manpower didn't have a woman power to it. So it stuck around to men and men bucking up. Now, that word is supposed to not be used now because a lot of papers and sources say that it is actually a derogatory term and it's
Mm.
offensive. And when we are
Mm.
trying to build a man's EQ, it can't be done under pressure.
Emotional quotient. Yeah.
So if you want to build someone's emotional quotient, want to make them resilient, want to make sure that they're sensitive, we can't do that under pressure.
Yep.
So this is actually a term that is supposed to be out of everybody's dictionary.
Yeah. So we shouldn't be using man up at all. That is what you're recommending. Yeah.
Yes.
And what other what other words that we casually throw about without much thought, and though we may pretend to be educated, enlightened, informed, and sometimes we are just blasé about what we are putting out there.
Yeah.
So how do we build as parents? How do we become conscious about what we are speaking to the child,
See, firstly, you
particularly
need
to
to
the boy? Mm.
remember that irrespective of gender, don't use a harsh word just to show someone their place
Mm.
or character. Using
Mm.
words like man up, less manly, sissy
Mm.
are supposed to be totally outside our dictionary because these are words that are redundant.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it to motivate someone, remember that that method is not going to work because that
Right.
particular person is going to feel more inferior in their own eyes. So it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, yeah. So now we come to a very interesting question that we
Okay.
debated ourselves in office as colleagues. And that
Okay.
is because some of us are parents and we keep on discussing this amongst ourselves. You know, parenting standards through the decades. For a long time, it followed a certain template. But today, sitting in 2024 with so many complexities around, with so many violent images around, and there is a lot of talk about toxic masculinity. So you see, for a boy growing up, masculinity is being referenced in a negative, with a negative adjective, mostly.
Correct.
So, how challenging does it come for a parent then
Hmm.
to readjust traditional parenting standards now, today, sitting as we are in 2024? What are the guidelines? Can you
Okay.
give some? Yeah.
See, parenting in 2024 is very different from what parenting was in 2000 or 94. Earlier, if your parents fired you, you would not get up from where you are. If your parents raised your hand on you, you'd probably never repeat that.
Mm.
Firstly, now that is something that's never going to work because of social media and rules, and with POXO doing the rounds and other acts like that doing the rounds, prevention of
Yeah.
child sexual abuse, various helplines wherein children
Mm.
can seek help, that is a total no no. Also, remember the more violence you display, either towards the child or the child has seen it, you are hampering their development and nourishment.
Yeah.
If you feel certain methods worked when you were a child, they will work now. I'm sorry, it does not work like that. We're talking parenting 2024. Today in parenting lectures, I discuss substance abuse, I discuss vaping, other addictions. I've had children as young as 12 and 13 come in with abortions, which we did not discuss in 2000 and 1995.
Yeah.
We cannot have things spoken about only at a superficial level. If
Yeah.
you feel your child does not know, first try and find out. They may know much more than you think they know. What is the content that they're watching? What is the genre that they're watching? If they are indulging in pornographic viewing, is it an addiction? If there is masturbation, is it an addiction? You need to understand what your child is doing, where
Yeah.
he is going, who is meeting. I'm not saying you need to hound your child. There needs to be a certain level of trust, but there also needs to be a certain level of freedom, because we've reached a point wherein the more you try to control and throttle a child, the more it's going to backfire against you. We're talking parenting 2024. There is definitely a difference which parents need to understand. Stop saying this worked for me, this will work for my child. No, your child was not born 30
Yes.
years ago. Also, set an example. Very important for parents. A lot of parents tell me my child does not read. And I tell them, when was the last time your child saw you sit with a book?
Mm.
No, but he has to read. I'm sorry, he's not going to read if he doesn't see you sit with a book.
Yeah.
So you may have read during your generation, but your child was not born then. You do something, they'll copy it. A lot of parents come in with questions related to my child shouts a lot. My first answer is, what do you do? So the parent says, I do this. Chillana nahi hai.
Mm.
So I say, you repeat it 10 folds with the same volume. So you're shouting and telling your child not to shout. How is it going to work? What is the example that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
set?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
set an example.
Example. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good practical example of
Yeah.
how, you can build consciousness in your everyday behavior.
Yeah.
So, before I open the floor to questions from our listeners and our audience, I would like to ask you, what are the guardrails, okay, for ensuring a gender equal future? What, as a society, as parents, what are the things we need to do to ensure a gender equal future starting today? Broad pointers, you covered a lot of territory, but if I were to ask you to sum up and give some very helpful guidelines.
I feel that both genders today command certain positions of power. What we need to teach young boys is to be done with the approach of my superiority. I am not superior in any way. I met a vendor and I happened to ask him, Aapka baby kaisa hai? This is exactly what I asked. Aapka baby kaisa hai? And that offended him. And he said, baby nahi hai, baba hai. This is a superiority complex. I met another gentleman at clinic and it took us very long to work with him. He was an adult in his mid 40s, but the youngest sibling of 5 grown up sisters, who was extremely pampered. So even though he was married with a child, he felt even picking up a glass of water was below his dignity. We need to be done with the superiority complex and remind all the men in the house to not have an egocentric approach. What is the meaning of egocentric? Which means I'm not the center of the universe and everything and everybody cannot be revolving around
Okay.
me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So now we are going to open the floor to questions. Some have come up on my
There is
screen.
also one small thing that I want to mention here is I
Yeah.
have seen a number of divorces happen due
Mm.
to the lack of a male child in the family.
Yes. I think
And
it's a
this
very
divorce,
significant point.
yeah,
Yes.
these divorces are initiated by men due to the lack of a male child in the family. I feel there also needs to be a certain amount of education in terms of the fact that people need to know, men need to know that they ultimately decide the sex of the child and it's not the female.
Yeah, that
So
is
we need
true.
to be sensitive on those lines too.
Okay. So now we will take up one question after another. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So the first question comes one from Mr. Sunil Vatsayan, and he writes in,
Okay.
how can social workers at schools, okay? How can social workers at schools differentiate differentiate between no, what does he say?
Is it in the
How
Q&A?
can social workers break down the barriers in the way they treat boys and girl students?
Okay, now it firstly depends on the gender of the social worker. Very
Okay.
important. So at a few schools where I work, and we have certain assistants there that are male, we have a
Hmm.
strict instruction about not touching at all. The maximum
Okay.
they can touch is probably a shoulder or the t-shirt. So this is a certain rule that we've set at certain schools. Now when it comes to females also, it should not be that because you're a lady you can touch a man. There has to be a certain set rules that we set, wherein if you want to call out to someone, you either touch only on the shoulder or only on the palm, and should not on the hand, and it should not go beyond that. It does not mean if
Okay.
a man cannot do it, a female teacher cannot do it to a boy as well, because then we are changing the rules.
Okay, now the next question comes up from one Anju Jain, and this is also a very important question, I feel.
Unmuting Anju Jain.
Anju Jain, yes. Is she here?
Yeah, she's there.
Yes.
She's there? Oh, then she can
Yeah.
ask the ma'am, can you hear us? Then you
Yes,
can
yes.
just ask your question live, please.
Yeah. Good evening. It has
Good
been
evening.
wonderful discussion by Rinku and Dr. Lalji. My question is how to ensure gender neutral behavior at home on a day-to-day basis in case of a single child. Like, I would like to give an example. If suppose in a family, one single child is boy, and in another family, the single child is girl. So what is happening is the boy is saying, maybe parents, you wanted the girl child. That is why I'm being brought up like this. And the girl child is complaining, maybe you wanted a boy, but somehow I came in your life. So it is very, very tricky situation. How
I think
to
this happens. I think this happens
go
very
ahead.
often when there is a slight argument in the house, and the parents in their hurt say that, "Why did I produce you?" Or you are like this only. So then the child begins to feel that I'm like this because of my gender, and that's why you wanted someone of another gender. So I think this must be a very temporary thing. I'm not sure. This is not like a major problem, but in that way, what you can do is, firstly, when a mistake is made, do not. A lot of parents sadly have even told their children, which I have heard, that I wish I had not produced you. I wish I had killed you in the womb. I wish tu kabhi mere ghar mein nahi aata, or you've been the black sheep of the family. Now when kids hear such conversations, okay, which may not have been the case in your house, I'm sure, which when kids hear such conversations, they feel very inferior. I had an 8th standard a child who's 8 years old today, who told me, I want to commit suicide. And I have immediately called upon her parents. How does an 8-year-old know this?
Yeah.
Okay. So kids feel inferior, and when they feel inferior and they see a certain comparison, or probably I'm a girl, I have seen a boy being treated better. Or I'm a boy and I've seen a girl treated better. So I will tell my parents that you didn't want me and you wanted this. It's done in a spit of rage, nothing more than that. Just give
So,
them that
Doctor,
assurance. Also, no matter how hurt or upset you are, try not taking it out in that way, and never curse a child or tell a child that I didn't want you, or the neighbor has a better child, or my sister has a better child. Avoid those comparisons. Things will be a lot easier.
so, in fact, she brought out, thank you, Ms. Jain, for asking that question. She brought out a very important issue about parental aggression and display of parental aggression in front of kids. So, Dr. Lalji, will you please guide parents as to why, even if they feel angry or furious or enraged or just have lost a momentary control of their balance, emotional balance, what they should do at home when they have children in front of them? How do they
Correct.
process these negative emotions better? Can you just give a guideline on that?
Correct. Point number one, extremely important. All couples fight, and the ones that say they don't are lying. Simple. Okay. Point number two, when you have an argument, you're not supposed to fight in front of the child. You will not believe, Rinku, how many children actually come back to school and narrate exactly what has happened in the house. 3 days ago, I met another child who says, my mother gives bad words, but these are bad habits. And in front of the principal, I should not have done this. In front of the principal, I asked this young 7-year-old, what bad word does your mummy give? Because that's what she said, mummy. And you won't believe the bad words that she has given. And the principal was looking at my face. And my first reaction was, ye maine kya pooch liya? Okay. So parents feel that this is just a matter of the house. Trust me when I say this is not the matter of the house.
Yeah.
Kids come to us and actually tell us, my mummy has said not to tell you this. Today at a school, a girl has been beaten up by her tuition teacher. But she has come back to school and said, Mummy ne bola hai, if you tell your teacher this, I will also beat you up. So that leaves us as professionals to walk on eggshells.
Yeah,
Because
that's true.
I want justice for this child, but if I talk to the mother, the child will be in more trouble. So I
Okay.
feel that aggression, firstly, needs to be in closed doors. No matter how raging you are, you need to
Yeah.
make sure that this is in closed doors only.
Okay. Okay, so I think some more questions coming up. I'll just read them here. Okay, I just want to ask Soumya, our moderator at the other end, if Miss Vrinda Shankar is in the chat room. Miss Shankar, Vrinda Shankar, are you there?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am,
yes.
I'm here.
Yeah. Miss Shankar, why don't you ask the question on web series? Again, a very potent question. Why don't you ask your question to Dr. Lalji directly?
Sure, ma'am. So, my question to you, ma'am, is that in this era, the access to web series is very easy, but the content of the web series is becoming more sexual, and sometimes it generalizes and over glorifies, I should say, glorify the superiority of men over women. So, in this scenario, when the access is so much that the parents also don't know that people are having Netflix and Amazon Prime accounts, then how to build the sensitivity of the boys around these things which are very sexually displayed there, and how to stop them from having that superiority by doing things which are derogatory to women.
So I guess
Thank you.
Dr. Lalji, what she's trying to say is basically perpetuation of sexual domination, which is like normalized in these shows and in mass media. So I think that is what she
Right.
means.
Right. So I think that's a very pertinent question. Thank you for that question. Now, one important thing that you need to remember is if the child is under a certain age group, they have to be parental locks. Okay. Say till, I would say even till 15. There have to be parental locks on certain content. Now, the content that a child watches says a lot about the child and what the child is going through. So even when I see adults with, say, pornographic addiction, or if I see adults with masturbation addiction, the first thing I ask them is, if you're watching porn, what is the genre that you're watching? Violence and rage says a lot about a person. Also, a person indulging in certain viewing behaviors would also start to objectify women. They would experience boredom with one particular partner, and so there would be promiscuity. They also fantasize that what they see on screen is something that they have to
Yeah.
replicate and produce in reality. So such people definitely need help. But now, if you're talking about a child, you have to sit with the child and tell the child that as you grow up, you're going to see a lot of things. You're going to see some things which are right and some things which are wrong. You're also going to see certain things which would tarnish your memory for life.
Yeah.
And you need to be careful about the content you're watching. Also, if you sensitize a child in terms of making them do chores that are technically not for men, like doing things in the house, sensitizing them, they will respect women automatically. And even if they are, say, you have your controls, but they have watched the content somewhere else, even if they have seen it, they will be able to decipher between right and wrong. Because then they'll have a judgment of right and wrong. So we explain it to them, we sensitize them, we tell them how both roles of both genders are equally important, and help them develop a certain amount of affection for
Okay.
the opposite sex.
Okay, so I want to ask if Mr. Sanjay Kumar Jaiswal is in the house. Mr. Jaiswal, are you there?
He's there. He's joined.
He's joined? Okay, Mr. Jaiswal, I would like you to ask your question to Dr. Lalji directly, please. It's a very important question that he has.
Hello, madam.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I am teacher. I am working in a junior college, and I have this same problem. We have to handle girls. We have to motivate the boys students also. But now question is how to negotiate this problem.
Okay.
We cannot treat this girl and boys and in the same speed up. Therefore,
Sir,
my
would you like to give me an example, sir? It would help. Any example that you can think of?
ma'am, we are running the school. We have
Yes, so
students.
junior college would be around, say, the kids are between 16 to 18 years, is what I
50 to
understand.
70. Yeah,
Okay.
teenage students are there,
Hmm.
and they are more aggressive. They are not taking the classes. They are just bunking their classes and doing something wrong things that we are not expecting from the students. And when I asked to the parent, I or complained to the parent that your boy or girl is doing this and that thing, they said that this is your responsibility being a teacher. Then how being a teacher, I have to negotiate the problem.
Sir, we have to first understand that there are going to be certain things which are in our control, certain things which are out of our control. If you are able to judge which child is out of class, I'm sure every parent also knows what their child is doing. It's not going to go unnoticed. Okay.
Okay.
Now, your role is bringing this to their notice. Once you brought this to their notice, you can probably tell them about how important it is. But you are dealing with 100 different adolescents in one classroom, which is not easy. You try
Yeah.
once, you try twice, but you remember also that you can't take onus for everything. And there is going to be a time wherein you'll have to maybe take smaller groups of children who are easier to understand or explain to, and there are going to be some which will not listen to you, which is okay as long as you've tried your best.
Okay. So, Dr. Lalji, there are some anonymous questions also, but they're very interesting, and I think they should be discussed here. They have requested anonymity, but the questions are, I'll just read them out one after the other, and you answer them one by one. So, one of them asks, is there anything specific to keep in mind while raising a boy as a single mother? Okay, raising a boy as a single mother. Also, can a mother talk to her son about his father who left him 15 days after his birth?
Okay, I'll
So
take the
she's talking
second.
about, I
How
think she's
old is
talking
the
about,
child? That is very important. How old is the child?
she hasn't asked about the, she hasn't mentioned, sorry, she hasn't
Okay, so I'll
mentioned
tell you
age.
because I have seen
But
this with
I
different age
assume
groups.
she's a young single mother. I assume she's a young single mother who's raising a boy. And
Yes,
if she wants to communicate the idea of the father leaving him, so I'm assuming the boy would be 7, 8 years plus.
under 10. Okay, so
Huh.
one thing is that firstly, it's absolutely fine for the mother to firstly have personal conversations with the child, whatever it is. Now, having said that, a child at 4 and 5 sees a lot of both parents at the annual day and sports day and
Yeah.
may feel very inferior. Now, I have told a number of parents this, do not say it until 8 and 9. Because firstly, you break the child's morale at a certain age group. Tell them a little later, tell them in a sensitive manner.
Okay.
So I feel that maybe saying it at 4, 5, and 6 is not the good thing, because I myself have seen a 6-year-old come to clinic and say, my dad ran away, my dad does this, my dad is with someone else. So we don't want those stories to do the rounds. And that will happen only after there is a certain amount of intellectual maturity, which will probably come in at 9. You can say that there are people who have both parents, there are children who have one parent. I am your one parent, and I am here to fulfill all that you need. As you grow, as he grows up, you unfold slowly, but you need not be direct in terms of, your father has left you when you were 15 days old. I'm very sorry to hear this question. I have seen certain mothers also suffer like this, and I hope you get all the power and strength that this universe has to offer.
Yeah, but I hope she has benefited from how to raise a son, because clearly she has this problem to negotiate, a very problematic territory to negotiate
I
with
would
her
say don't
son.
do it. Don't do it
Uh-huh.
initially, because it creates a lot of hatred towards the male gender. I have seen that happen initially. Then there's hatred seen in a lot of ways. Also, these children then try to attach love and meaning to any male gender that they have. So if there is,
Yeah.
like I tell them, a chacha or a nana, let them have a certain bond, because a little masculine bond would help for the child to identify
Yeah.
with the same gender.
Yeah. So we have another anonymous caller who says nowadays children have separate rooms and even siblings live in separate rooms. Is it okay to build these separate, living areas in the house, or is some correction required? I probably she means is whether, having separate rooms distances familial relationships, or maybe she's trying to she hasn't given details, but probably her
I feel
concerns
that,
are about
see, if you have,
putting them in separate rooms, affects interpersonal relations. I think that is what she
I feel
means by this question.
you can be in the same room and have nothing to do with each other, and you can be in three different rooms and still meet for 2 meals and chat for 2 hours. So it's the conversations you have and the relationship that you have that is very important. If you feel that, we're having like a meal together, sitting and chatting, watching together, I think that's completely healthy. But if you
Yeah.
feel they're just not coming out of their room and it's just a locked space, then I would say
Mhm.
that's not a very healthy thing.
Okay, then another anonymous, I'm just asking the anonymous ones first because, they're very interesting and I think crucial to our conversation that we are having today. She says that even if a girl is brought up in a very liberal manner, she's expected to take up a much more traditional role post-marriage. So how do we prepare boys who are going to be grooms to, treat their brides as equal and not confine them to traditional roles? And this is true in a lot of ways, post marriage, even an enlightened girl, or for that matter, even an enlightened bride, there is some kind of conditioning where the bride says, okay, I will manage this. The tendency to compromise comes from the girl's side, and the boy says, okay, certain things in the house need to be done. So this is a very interesting question. How do you
I feel
overcome this
if there
conditioning?
is, I think if there is a newlywed boy who has seen his chacha or father do chores in the house or make his mother feel comfortable, he will do the same thing. If he has been brought up with domination, he will do the same thing. I think it's
Mhm.
how you need to see when you pick a partner, how sensitive is this child towards the mother?
Mhm.
Because then there's a chance that if he understands the needs of the mother, he may be a little more sensitive. How is the person's relationship with both parents or a sister
Mhm.
or other siblings? Also, I feel that do not agree to everything immediately,
Mhm.
because the moment you start agreeing to everything, it becomes like a set pattern that you're in for this. You will have
Yeah,
to rationalize, you will have to negotiate, say what you're used to as well. Only to
yeah,
please a person, do not go all out, because then you'll be
yeah.
expected to do this all the time. Tell them this is possible, not possible, or I'm tired, and it's okay to say that, and it's okay to take a break and take care of yourself too.
Okay. So I'm looking at a question from Dr. Sham Lal. Are you in the house, sir? Maybe you would like to ask your question directly to Dr. Lalji. Dr. Sham Lal?
We are
Uh,
meeting him.
huh? Is he, Soumya, is he in the
He's
house?
there. He's there. We
Yeah.
unmute.
So shall I go over to the next question then? Is there a Miss Hamsika in the house? Miss Hamsika? I think I can see her. Hello, ma'am. Good evening. Uh, Tom,
She
Soumya, have we
unmuted.
been able to connect either Dr. Shamlal or Hamsika?
No, we are trying to unmute them. I think they're not available right now on the audio. So you
Okay,
can
okay,
take up their
okay.
questions.
Okay. So Hamsika, I'll quickly go over them. Now I will just speed up a little bit because we've crossed an hour. So we have about 10-15 minutes more to wrap this up. So Dr. Shamlal writes about crushing emotional stress. So what is an ideal way? I guess he means how do we help
When
boys handle emotional stress?
first step is you need to identify what are the emotions that you're facing. Now,
Mm,
every emotion has to be handled and dealt with very differently. Say, for example, there's a lot of rage in me and there's puberty and I'm feeling aggressive. Probably
mm,
taking into some sports, some physical activities would help me
mm,
vent that better. Doing something which is not only engaging but also intellectually stimulating, or something that gives me good muscle memory, would help me relax, calm down. And then when I come home, I come a little more relaxed because I've already released certain hormones that have helped me relax. So
Yeah.
physical activities, if nothing, then probably just jog. You will feel lighter, and then you can come back feeling more, I think, fresh.
Okay. So Hamsika's question is, my son is very obsessive about his toys and doesn't want anyone to touch them or doesn't allow anybody to clean them. Okay. So the son is obsessive about his toys.
Is
She
there
doesn't
anything
mention the
that the
nature of.
child is obsessed? Is the child obsessed about anything else? Because then we have to look at a totally different dynamic
Yeah.
altogether.
Hmm.
So, and also the
She
age of the
mentions
child is
toys.
very important.
Mhm.
So the age of the child is important. Probably you can ask him or her to clean it on their own. What is it that the child is possessive about? Also, if you can replace it with more love, physical affection, more hugs, then probably the attraction towards the toys would reduce.
Yeah. Okay. So, Shruti Maharaj. Do we have Soumya? Do we have a Shruti Maharaj in the house?
Yes, we are unmuting her.
Yeah. Ma'am, can you ask your question to Dr. Lalji? Soumya, do we have Miss Shruti Maharaj?
She's there, but she's not receiving us. You
I
take up the
think
call.
she's. So I'm just mentioning these names. If you can line up Navdeep Singh, Dr. Lokit Ade, Usha Parik, and Dr. Arvind Kumar. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So if you can line them up and tell me, then I can. Meanwhile, I will just go back to Shruti Maharaj's question, since we cannot connect with her. As a counselor, how should you keep your approach when interacting with male and female students in the offline space? I don't know what she means by
Yes, in person. I
in the
feel that
offline space in person. Yes.
So I feel that as a counselor, firstly, you need to have certain
Hmm.
boundaries. In counseling term, we use the word transference and counter transference. Transference means when your patient or your client begins to develop a certain affection towards you. Counter transference is when it's the other way around. You need to make sure that something like that does not happen. And if you see it happening, even from the other person's side, you need to discontinue therapy or send them to someone else. Also have certain boundaries in terms of the communication they can have with you. So I would not even encourage a handshake because there are certain boundaries. You sit formally. Do not encourage asking certain personal questions to you, because your self-disclosure cannot happen. It's their self-disclosure. It is a very formal, personal sitting. It's personal for them, but it's formal for you. So you'll have to keep those boundaries and keep it very formal for the person coming in.
Okay. Dr. Lokit Ade, I see him flashing on the screen, but is he unmute? Or I will go ahead and just ask his questions. Soumya, can you help me out here? Dr. Lokita Ade?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dr.
Yeah, ma'am.
Ade? Yeah. Please
Yes,
ask your
ma'am.
question.
Actually, yeah. So it was like for the young parents. So this gender sensitization question was there because the young parents who have faced this thing and moved on, and now they are having their children, and now they can't distinguish between how to um, handle their children, or like how to rear them further, because they have certain experiences and they still carry on with them. So how do we tackle that thing and take it in a more neutral way?
Can you
So,
elaborate on that question a little bit? I mean, what is it
I'll
that
tell
is?
you, Dr. Lalji, what he basically means is, suppose you are a first-time parent, okay?
There are
You are
certain
new to
mistakes that you
parenting.
made and you want to
No,
change them.
and you have actually grown up in a conditioned environment, okay? And like in a conservative conditioned environment. So how do you change? How will they be aware of the need to change their parenting standards?
Okay. Firstly, there is no denying that parenting standards have to change now. I tell parents to use both methods. Be a little firm, at the same time, be a little soft. Okay, so you have to play with both these methods and see what works best for you. Now, every parent makes mistakes. So I say this to a lot of parents: when you conceive, you don't come out with a parenting degree. Mistakes will happen, but you need to learn on the job. Also, if there are certain parents who themselves form groups and they discuss ideas in terms of what worked for you, what didn't work for me. So if you're a part of certain parenting forums, you will learn a lot. If there is a lot of resistance in the child, you know that a certain behavior opted by you is not working, so you need to change that method. So the method will have to be dynamic and ever changing in that way.
Okay, so is Dr. Arvind Kumar in the house, Soumya? Dr. Arvind Kumar from Jamia Millia Islamia?
Someone needs to mute themselves, I think.
Yeah.
Someone is.
Dr. Arvind Kumar, are you there? Dr. Arvind Kumar from Jamia Millia Islamia?
There, we're trying to unmute him.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Dr. Kumar, is that Dr. Kumar? Yes, Dr. Kumar.
Yes.
Please go ahead and ask your question to Dr. Lalji.
Yes. So thank you so much. In fact, because I quite enjoyed this whole session, not
Thank
just
you.
as an academic but also as a parent. So congratulations to both Indian Express and Lalji and Turinku madam. My question emerges from the larger, attempt towards inclusive education. So of course, gender is one, and I am someone who is at the intersection of caste and gender, and I was wondering because enough have been done from the government side. So new NCRTs we see lot of changes, but the alternative textbooks, particularly when you have from Pratham or Tulika,
The NIOS board, basically.
yes. So one of them I remember found it very fascinating to translate because all the names were the first name was Tulika only, and the second name was Irfan, and third name it seemed like a boy from a northeast. So considering that, we still have the stories beginning from Rama, and later after Rama attains puberty and he becomes a prince, Sita comes in. So in that sense, how do you see the changing role of government and those who
Okay,
are
tell me one
actually
thing. Now, you're following the Pratham board, and that's why you're talking in terms of special needs and inclusion. And I perfectly understand your question. But why should
right.
we change that? Tell me. What if it's
No,
just the way it is?
all I'm saying from the perspective of that, my center was first Center for Exclusion Studies. Now it is Center for Inclusion. So many things we do not have
Very
control
nice.
over. All I'm
Correct.
saying that why not more women heroes for that matter. You understand?
Okay,
Very
okay.
recently we
Yeah.
got to know that Savitribai Phule, much later,
Yeah, exactly.
so and it is like when I came to university I got to know that she is the first one who started school for untouchable girls,
So
in
Dr.
that
Kumar,
sense.
what basically Dr. Kumar is trying to say, Dr.
Yeah.
Lalji,
Yes,
is
I
to
understood.
ensure is also correct the gender role models from the school syllabus level
Correct.
itself. That is what I think
So I think
he's
we
trying to.
need to, I also remember reading a line similar to what Dr. Kumar has said, that so-and-so girl has fallen down, so-and-so boy has come to pick her up. So, I think this will come only through awareness. Each one talks more about it. We probably try and, like he mentioned, the NCRT.
No, but since he's a teacher, he can whether it is in the syllabus or not, as a teacher, he can still put these examples, even if it is not in the course curriculum or in the syllabus. These, stories can be told in the classroom, right?
I think we have to also narrate more success stories. Now
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he's explained his question very well towards the end, so it
Mhm.
doesn't have a lot to do with the religion or the culture where in India they're from. It's just that
Yes.
narrating a success
Little
story.
success
So
story is
there is a very funny nursery rhyme that some children in the kindergarten sing. They call it a certain song wherein one line goes, "Boys come to help us and girls come to help us." And I keep telling them, change this. Tell them nobody's coming to help you. You do your own thing, because there's this nursery rhyme that they sing very often. So I think we need to teach children to be a little more independent. I mean, I said that jokingly to them, that teach them that you're going to help yourself. Nobody's coming to help you. But
yeah.
I think over time, if we set better examples, narrate success stories, and we've
Yeah.
also been, like he's spoken about the Pratham board and how the top, how it's been changed from the center of exclusivity
Yeah,
to
yeah.
inclusivity, which is such a
Yeah.
good step. So which
Good,
I
good
really
thing.
like. Yeah.
Exactly. So we are almost absolutely out of time. So Soumya, do we have anybody lined up for questioning? There is a Dr. Anamika and a doctor and somebody called Navdeep Singh on my screen. Are they in the house? Then we can quickly wrap those two questions up.
At for Usha?
So there is a Miss Usha Parekh, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll unmute her.
Let's get her on. Let's get her on. Yeah. Miss Parekh, can you hear us?
Yes, very
Are we
well.
audible?
Thank
Yeah.
you very much for giving me
Yeah.
time. Excellent presentation by Rinkuji and Alicia. I think I'm impressed after a long time on parental education.
Thank you.
Really, from the bottom of my heart,
Okay.
excellent education.
Pleasure.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Go ahead and ask your question. Yeah.
Yes. Before asking my question, I'll add one line to the person who just asked, the gentleman doctor asked the question, that he's right, so many Rushikas are there in our scriptures which are never mentioned. We have always mentioned about Rushis. So that point needs to be taken care of. Now,
Yeah.
my question is, coming to the religion again, I had an opportunity to go for health education programs in a minority community, and I spoke about masturbation, importance of masturbation. It's not a sin. And at the end, they congratulated personally, coming to me, that this is something we never expected, we never knew. So when the religious people are involved in it, it makes a lot of difference. I was listening to a Gita online program, and in that they mention in the scriptures that women should stay away from temples, and they should not do certain things, even in 2024. And so I had to raise the question that we are giving opportunity to young girls to listen to these programs, and if we say this to boys and girls, that this is what it should be, then we are not doing justice to the changing times. She said that, but that's what it is in the scriptures. I said no, scriptures also need to be interpreted in the terms of context of the time that we are staying in.
Yes, this
So
is a very good
that's
question, ma'am. And I think you meant menstruation. And now, in fact, with female.
Sorry, Dr. Lalji, let's talk about, since we have little time, menstruation we have touched upon both. Let's talk about masturbation too in this, okay?
Okay,
A lot
let
of
me
people
touch
have a lot
upon.
of biases. Yeah, because we are talking
Let
about raising
me.
boys. Let's also touch upon masturbation and quickly wrap this up. Yeah.
Okay, so let me first, in 30 seconds, address both of them. One is that when we see like a female pandit, or we see someone, a female lighting the fire, these are very progressive steps, and I think it's great. And I think she's mentioned something on similar lines. Now, when it comes to masturbation and religion, I understand that it may be a taboo somewhere, but trust me, it doesn't mean that children and adults are not indulging in it. You need to teach them where it is supposed to be done, okay, and not do it. It is natural, it is healthy if it is not an addiction, but at the same time you need to tell them that they need to safeguard their body from infections, from not doing it repeatedly. And if there is a certain content that they're watching in terms of pornography, what is the genre that they're watching? Is it something healthy? Is it safe? Is it becoming an addiction? Is it also affecting the academics? Very important. So masturbation, there is a lot of taboo attached to it. Less is spoken about it. Like there is less spoken about female orgasms, there is also less spoken about female masturbation.
Okay, so yeah. So I think we are absolutely at the end of the time. Soumya, can we take one question from Dr. Dinesh Kapadia? he has a very interesting question from the list that you've sent me. And then we will call it a wrap. Dr. Dinesh Kapadia, are you there online? Dr. Dinesh Kapadia, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I am here. Yes. Am I audible?
Yes,
sir.
you are. So yours will be the last question we are taking today on this session. And after that, we call it a wrap. But it's an interesting question on hormonal changes. So please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. So my point is, don't you agree with me that there is a need of the hour is to impart training education to adolescents in high school and colleges, because most of the students feel affection towards that different sex, but they don't have scientific knowledge that the hormonal changes with the advent of adolescence is a natural phenomenon. If there is awareness, mass awareness, then there would be less cases of molestation and rape. As Director of Gender Resource Center, Government of Gujarat, I have published a book in vernacular language with the help of gynecologists and clinical psychologists. The issues is associated with advent of adolescence. So this is my suggestion and question. Don't you agree with me? That should be mass
think it's
awareness.
okay. No,
Okay,
mass
yes,
awareness for
Dr.
sure.
Kapadia, we get your question. So, Dr.
I think
Lalji?
mass awareness for sure, but I feel not college and high school. It needs to be done way before that. Like, for example, at 4 we teach good touch and bad touch. At 6 we teach this is your body and how someone is supposed to react to it. Then at probably now 8.5 we teach menstruation, because a lot of girls are on their period at 9. At
Yeah.
8.5 we teach that. So I think it's a slow transition that happens throughout your life, which we suddenly cannot take in high school, which is actually 13, 14 plus. It starts gradually and there's a slight ascent. And I think every 14-year-old knows as much as us. So college के लिए कुछ बचा नहीं जो हमने नहीं सिखाया, because they know it on their own.
Well, I think that's a wrap because we are way past our time limit. And thank you so much, Dr. Lalji, for doing this session with us and sharing really valuable insights and, more important, guidelines and, tips and tricks that will help a lot of parents and educators out there. Thanks to all Indian Express subscribers for signing into News You Can Use on the new before, and we are closing to news hour. So, just spending so much time with us. Thank you so much. And with that, we call it a wrap. Thanks, everybody, and have a very good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.